We got Coach Jordan Peterson. Don't have mics today, so let's go ahead and fire away.
Somebody I gotta talk louder?
Just yell.
No problem.
All right. Just generally speaking, you've done a lot of recruiting in Arizona this offseason. Now we got 2 more Arizona schools in the Big 12. How does that kind of affect your approach?
Well, as far as approach is concerned, like we once we decided to go into the state of Arizona, it was game on anyways. But now, obviously, I had a few high school coaches go, well, now obviously that changes the narrative a little bit as far as, okay, now they get to play in the Big 12, they get to come to Kansas, and they get to play a couple games back home in front of their friends and family. So I think that obviously is a positive for us. Like some of the guys that like I got a pretty good group of guys that I have a good relationship with, and they all hit me up saying, hey, let's go, right? This is exactly what we wanted. So fired up about it. We'll see where we can continue the momentum.
On the topic of Arizona, what's kind of the key when you go into a new area? Like, what are some of the things you have to focus on to make sure you develop good, long-lasting relationships?
Time. You know, it's like when you first go into an area, really for the first time, not really knowing guys personally, you just can't schedule as many schools in a day, right? You can't go say, I'm going to hit 8, right? Which is, in an area like Houston that I've recruited for 12 plus years, you can hit some more schools. Well, initially you gotta, like when I went into Arizona, it's like, all right, well, my goal is 6, right? I gotta take a little extra time, sit down, get to know who these coaches are as human beings, how they tick, what's important to them, get to know how their programs run, because again, when you're recruiting high school players, their background and what high school they're at and what kind of program they're coming from a culture standpoint, that all plays into our evaluation of who we want to bring into this program, right? And what their starting point kind of gives us a key to being able to hit their buttons when they step foot on campus, because they're all going to be wide-eyed at some point, right, when they walk on campus and play Power 5 football. But knowing those relationships, and again, with the transfer portal, you can't ever have too many good relationships, right? Because you're sitting there going, okay, you're a freshman. Sometime in your first year, it's going to be a wall, right? You're going to hit a wall, okay? And the more people that you can have in that kid's corner, in your program's corner, the better off you're going to be.
Hey Jordan, when you went into Arizona, how much did it help to you to build those relationships coming off a successful season?
Okay, so I went in there last spring, so that was prior to the bowl season. So you're sitting there, you're kind of giving Coach Leipold's background, right? He's built winners every place he's been. It's not about, if it's going to happen. It's going to be when it's going to happen. How fast is that going to happen, right? And so that was the narrative as you're going in prior, right? And obviously, for the whole recruiting class, but you're talking about Arizona, like you're sitting there going, okay, here's the proof of what we've been talking about, right? Here's what we've done culturally and how we've built that foundation. Are we where we want to be? Absolutely not. Right? But it does give a little more credibility to the message that you started with at the very beginning prior to having the bowl season, right? And then even now you're sitting there talking about it like, hey, look, you saw progress. That ain't it, right? That's not what we're looking to get and what we're looking to achieve. That's not the standard, right? But there is some evidence of progress.
Rich Miller was pretty high on Jacoby and Jamil when he talked the other day. What's your perspective on how they've done so far?
They both flashed in their own right. It's they're playing more defense than they've ever played, right? So you go out there and guys are spinning, and that's across the board for all freshmen, right? But they got that mindset. That's right. They got that competitive edge to them. They play with that edge. Now, moving forward, it's going to be just teaching them how we practice, right? The standards of which we practice, how we protect each other, staying off the ground. Just all the little things that makes the difference in a program. So that's been the major coaching points over the first 5 practices is, we're making corrections schematically. We're teaching them the defense, right? But okay, look, this is how we practice, period, right? And if you're not gonna practice that way, you're gonna lose reps, right? And then you're gonna be behind, right? So just like anything, you're teaching them the culture, you're teaching them how to protect each other, you're teaching them how to practice effectively. But both those guys have definitely flashed in the first week.
What hopes do you have for Kobe building off what was a pretty successful 2022?
Well, we talk about it all the time. It started right after the bowl game, right? Just, hey, look, these are the things that we've got to see, right? So and he is completely bought into the process of that, right? He understands that, yes, you have your flash plays and you're really good in man and press is your bread and butter, but okay, these are the X, Y, and Z things that you got to get better at to be the more complete player. And so he's being more active and proactive as far as seeking out opportunities to become better, learning how to watch film and study film a little bit better, more effectively and efficiently. So, obviously you come off of a season where he's first team All Big 12. You're always in the back of your head like, okay, is he going to be content, right? Or is he still going to maintain that level of hunger that he's always had? And that hasn't been a problem, right? He's taking more notes than ever. He's practicing harder than ever. He's leading the group as far as being able to be a little more vocal than what he is typically. So these first 5 practices, I like where he's at right now.
In terms of for him taking the next step, like what are some of the things you're looking to see him really improve on versus what we saw last year?
Well, he got from last spring to the season, he made exponential jumps. Okay, and then what I would just say is, hey, look, completely understanding the big picture of the coverage. Okay, where's the strength of the coverage versus the weakness of the coverage? Where can you be more aggressive versus you got to play a little bit more conservative, make sure that you're in a control position. When can you undercut? When can you not? Right, based on the coverage concept and where your help is, and that's going to help him make consistently better decisions on when to be overly aggressive, right? Because he's aggressive by nature, right? So being able to control that and understand when and why, that's been a major coaching point. And then always with that goes with eyes, right? You can know when you can look back and when you can't really look back, just things like that.
I think you talked a little bit about Brian Dilworth in the spring. Where is he kind of at in taking the next step, and what exactly does kind of a role look like for him this year?
Well, just like a lot of young guys, it's like, hey, look, number one, you got to find your way on the bus, right? So, like, how does that typically happen with young players, right? Well, you got to be a core special teams player, right? And then you've got to earn the trust of not only the staff but your teammates, right? And how do you do that? Well, just like coaches earning the trust of players, it's a consistency factor, knowing what you're going to get day in and day out. So that would be the thing, right? I don't really want to place expectations. It's still too early. We haven't even gone full pads yet. But I think he's got the ability to be able to be that guy that's a core special teams guy and fighting for getting on the bus and being part of the travel roster and getting in the rotation here and there. But it's just going to be hammering out consistency. And I think he's embraced that and made a lot of progress over the last year.
Hey, Jordan, with Gervin, I wouldn't know if you could talk about his versatility. I know he comes in on some fifth DB stuff and can play corner.
Yeah, so he's a guy that, speaking of trust, he's a guy that you're like, yeah, you want your daughter to marry a guy like him. So like when it comes to like trusting him and knowing that he's going to put in the work and all those kinds of things, that's not a question, right? So he's bouncing back and forth between playing on the outside, playing on the inside. So from a mental standpoint, you're putting more stress on him to be able to be a technician at a lot of different techniques and a lot of different coverage concepts. But because of his experience last year playing 500 plus snaps on defense, I feel really good about his progress. And so we'll see. Obviously, we'll still be using him in a similar role, right? We'll see based on how the season goes and all that kind of stuff, how much outside, how much inside, that's yet to be determined, but he's a stud.
Jamil, how much of the transition from high school to college, like how's that been for him?
Well, I'll just lump all freshmen in with that. It's not one guy in particular, but just, again, going back to knowing the standard, right? Knowing the consistency of why everything matters, not just when you step between the white lines. It's in the meeting room, it's going to class, it's tutoring, we put a lot on these guys, right? And there is no wiggle room. The standard is the standard, and a lot of those young guys will figure it out pretty quick that's not changing, right? So you got to figure it out. We'll ride you a little bit to make sure that you understand what the expectations are. So, and just like anybody that comes in, there's got a little bit of a learning curve for like your ability at a high school compared to some of the guys you're playing against. There's more of a gap, right? You get to college, everybody was that guy, right? Every single player on that field was that guy in high school. Okay, so there's no plays off, there's no cheating your eyes, there's no lackadaisical technique and effort, right? That's all part of the learning curve of knowing how to practice.
When you return so much experience in the DB room, what kind of flexibility does that offer you as a coach on the field and off?
Well, I would say, you know, you get more flexibility from the standpoint of being able to dual teach guys, right? Dual teach multiple positions. Here's field safety, here's the boundary safety, here's the Cinco position, here's nickel, here's corner, right? You get a chance to talk like that and dual teach guys, so that you never know what can happen in a season. It's a long season, guys get injured, and you obviously want to get the best 11 combination on the field, best available 11. So that's a big part of it. What I would say too is when you get that many snaps coming back, you can really step back a little bit and talk to them big picture, right? It helps with like we were talking about earlier with Kobe and understanding with strengths and weaknesses of coverage and when to take chances. Well, we're talking more about big picture coverage concepts. You know, it's not just, okay, here's your technique, here's your narrow focus, right? You can kind of talk more big picture because there's quite a bit of experience in the room. So I think that's a big positive.
Being a few months into the defensive pass game coordinator role, I mean, what's it been like sort of settling further into that as time has gone on?
Well, I mean, this is a great staff, you know, starting with Coach Leipold, and so working with everybody day in and day out. I mean, it's obviously great. I'm very appreciative for being able to stay here. You know, everybody in that defensive room is on the same page. You have conversations about how we can adjust this or adjust that or make a tweak here, make a tweak there, which I think is going to help us going into the season. But it's a constant conversation as a full defensive staff and trying to put our guys in the best positions to make the plays based on tendencies of offenses and things that we see on a week in and week out basis. So I think it's been good.
Curious with Demarius, just where's he kind of at broadly in his adaptation and kind of competition?
I'd say he's done a really good job of adapting to the culture. You know, you never know with guys coming in from other programs and where they're going to be at mentally and what culture they were coming from. And so he's done a good job of adapting to what we do, how we do it. You know, and so just continuing to harp on making sure that you're playing with a high sense of urgency, right? Obviously, you're out there on the island playing and play out. There's zero room for error. But he's done a good job of adjusting to our culture. Our defensive scheme. He's really smart, so he understands football. And so we just got to keep pushing and keep approaching it with urgency, but no panic, right? You got to have urgency every single play, every single day. There's going to be changes and adjustments and things that we've got to fix. So don't panic. But if we don't have urgency, we're not going to be ready. So that's my message to him.
Anything else for Coach? All right.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks.